An evening of relaxation and networking in an atmosphere that exudes comradeship as the British Council marks her 80th anniversary in Nigeria. With a sense of fulfillment, officials of the British Council reflect on the journey of 8 decades in Nigeria, 80 years of excellent service in promoting quality education, cultural integration and inclusivity.
Together we have empowered millions of young Nigerians with skills, education and connections that open doors. These achievements underscore the strength of the UK-Nigerian relationship, which we are proud to support and nurture for mutual benefits.
The British Council in Nigeria works to create more inclusive society through a variety of its programs, including education, entrepreneurship, English language development, arts and culture. The United Kingdom High Commissioner to Nigeria reflects on the activities of the Council in the last 80 years, just as he makes a further commitment to amplifying the voice of young people.
And the thing that I'm most looking forward to is an issue you touched on, the transnational education partnerships. This concept that actually it's not just about attracting Nigerian students to come and study in the UK, but it's the responsibility of UK universities to build mutually supportive partnerships to improve quality education in Nigeria, in the Nigerian higher education ecosystem. This is where the British Council has played a key catalytic role and will continue to be a key catalytic institution going forward.
Amplifying the voices of youths for the future is at the heart of what we do. And working with youths across sub-Saharan Africa is a priority.
And the cake for the 80th anniversary of the British Council in Nigeria is cut.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. That was nice.
Established in Nigeria in 1944, British Council has continued to evolve in its programs and services to promote arts and culture, shape policies that guarantee quality education, as well as encourage entrepreneurship.
All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, as you may have seen in the welcoming slide, we're joined by His Excellency Richard Montgomery, British High Commissioner to Nigeria. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, both.
Yeah, so yes, we'll talk about that and a lot more. So we don't know. Let's see how this plays out. Let's start off with UK's Foreign Secretary's visit to Nigeria. Quite an interesting one. Could you talk to us about the significance of that visit?
Well, I think it was significant for a number of reasons. He came only a few weeks ago. I think, Marpa, you interviewed him.
Indeed, I did.
It was his first visit as Foreign Secretary to Africa, and he chose Nigeria as the first country to come to. He also announced a new consultation on the new UK government's relationship with Africa. And most important for Nigeria, he achieved a number of meetings with various ministers, including the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he met His Excellency, the President. And Nigeria and the UK, we signed a strategic partnership that covers a number of areas that we've been working on over the last year to build our relationship on trade and investment, on security and defence, on our migration and visa relationship. And of course, because Nigeria is such an anchor country in the region, in the continent, we are also talking more on foreign policy issues in the region and globally, indeed. And of course, we have a big people-to-people relationship, a big development cooperation program. So all of these issues were wrapped up into a strategic partnership. And that strategic partnership was a fantastic achievement. It's based on the fact that the UK government wants to work with the government of Nigeria under the Renewed Hope agenda. But it was particularly pleasing as High Commissioner to get that strategic partnership across the line with a new UK government under the leadership of my Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, and of course David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary.
It's interesting. I mean, you speak of a whole encompassing strategic partnership. You mentioned many areas that it is also covering. One of the areas I think you're also looking at is energy. The Foreign Secretary mentioned, getting electricity. We see that we're we're, struggling a bit with electricity in Nigeria, and that's one of the areas that, the UK is looking to invest, especially in the area of trade. But it was pretty short on specifics. So I don't know, is it possible for you to flesh out the specifics for us?
I can try. We recognize that energy is so important for Nigeria. And, we're very conscious that in certain parts of the country there have been quite severe blackouts in recent months, and people have been facing quite considerable hardship on it. We have been working with the Ministry of Power and independent power producers and the distribution companies to provide, in our own small ways, some technical ideas, ways of improving the national grid, ways of improving electricity supply. We're also working with independent power producers to try and create off-grid solutions, whether it's solar panels in health clinics. We have a program on that. But we're also working with businesses that are big enough to justify their own power supply. And we have a line of effort in helping businesses raise capital, particularly for cleaner energy, greener energy, solar particularly. But we are standing ready to discuss further with the government how we can help through relevant technical assistance where we can offer support. And of course, we support other international financial institutions like the African Development Bank, the World Bank, that are very active in the sector in terms of financing.
For those who are watching this program now and will be saying, "Oh, I'd like to see if I can access that," where should they be looking to? Should they be looking to the Nigerian side, or should they be looking to the British High Commission to provide more details on how they can get access to some of these things?
So there are 2 pointers I'd give. The first is we have a technical assistance program called the UK Nigeria Infrastructure Advisory Facility. It's actually mainly staffed by Nigerian experts. Unfortunately, that facility is coming to an end. We're in discussions with the federal government about what a successor program would look like to try and help back the reforms that the federal government is pushing forward in the energy sector. But we also have our own development finance institution called British International Investment, BII. It's based down in Lagos, and they have been funding some private sector. They help to raise equity debt to help private businesses raise money for energy projects.
Or maybe a little bit more on business, because I know we might just go to this tax matter soon. Do we expect perhaps maybe a little more specifics, or what would it be? Will there be, talk to us about the role that British businesses will play in Nigeria to help boost our economic reform agenda?
Yeah. Well, look, can I start with the big picture, which is, I think, one of the meeting of minds when both my Prime Minister and His Excellency the President spoke over the phone some months ago, and when the Foreign Secretary came and met His Excellency the President, is that both our governments are focused on growth. And it's a very stark reality that Nigeria has a demographic boom that is a huge potential opportunity to harness, but the rate of growth is not keeping up with that. So growth for Nigeria, you can see why His Excellency the President and his economic management team have made growth absolutely central. A lot of growth obviously has to come from internal investment, Nigerians' own effort, but growth can be boosted by enhanced trade and investment. And that's why earlier this year, actually in late February, we signed an enhanced trade and investment partnership to try and boost the amount of UK investment and trade between our two countries. And that sort of focus on growth is just central to the partnership. Now, in terms of, we signed this enhanced trade and investment partnership, what we call ETIP, and it has a number of sectors where we see the potential for more UK investment. So there are lots of British businesses already in Nigeria, fast-moving retail goods, in energy, transnational education, but we see a real potential for growth in creatives, in transnational education, in indeed agriculture, in Nigeria's agricultural exports. So those are areas where we're working with the federal government to try and work out how we can best boost trade and investment between Britain and Nigeria.
For those exports, agri-exports, I know we just spoke to the minister not long ago.
Senator Abdullahi, yeah. I was listening to him in the
yeah,
meeting.
Because I mean, we're concerned about some of our produce being rejected in Europe. What do we expect from Britain in that regard?
So this is something really interesting about the ETIP. So the Nigerian Standards Organization and UK Standards Organizations are talking about how we can help exporters meet standards, because the simple fact is that the UK, as of about 18 months ago, removed all tariffs on 99% of Nigerian exports to the UK.
Okay.
So there's a very preferential trade regime from Britain to Nigeria. But you put your finger, Chamberlain, on a real issue, which is meeting standards is important, especially food standards. But that's where our Enhanced Trade Investment Partnership, we have a working group, we have some technical assistance with the Nigerian Standards Organization to help exporters achieve what they need to achieve in terms of standards so they can export more easily.
I think I want to, just one more from me on that particular one, because I mean, it concerns a lot of people. When we hear that, we just keep wondering, so where exactly are we missing it? So do you have that kind of conversation with the SON in terms of what specifically do businesses need to do here to ensure they meet up with those standards?
So one issue is standards, and there are other regulatory issues that we need to work on. But just to give a concrete example, I was up in Kano a few months ago, and we went and saw some food processors, very professional, lots of very good food products being packaged. It's more a certification issue in those factories. How do you get the right certification so that the export is more easily? But I mean, there are other issues on which we would like to have further conversations with the government about how do you boost investment in different areas. So, and I think the appointment of Dr. Jumoke as the new Federal Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment is very exciting, because she's got a lot of experience in her past career about making it easier for business to work, business regulatory reform. And there are various interests. You on the Lagos show about financial technology, there's a new digital economy, e-commerce legislation likely to go through the National Assembly here. We'd like to have conversation with our Nigerian partners about what will boost financial technology growth in that sort of sector. We're hoping, after the Foreign Secretary met the Honourable Minister for the Creative Economy, we're hoping to work together on various ways of boosting co-investment in the creative sector, whether it's film or music. And, for example, the Foreign Secretary, he brought some people from the British creative sector to talk about co-production. What would it take to get more UK investment in Nigeria film and music, which of course is taking the world by storm. So we're very interested in your creative economy expanding, just as the UK creative economy is one of about 6-7 areas that my government is prioritising as a sort of strategic priority for the UK growth agenda.
It certainly was very heartwarming to see, one of our artists on the stage in the UK when Prince Charles was coronated. So,
Tiwa Savage.
Yeah, Tiwa Savage, yes. So certainly, I mean, we can see that relationship is certainly budding in that, and well, maybe growing even. But I want to take you up on the issue of foreign policy, because this is one of the areas you say that, the visit of the Foreign Secretary also focused on. It's unclear. For some countries, we know that depending on the government and power, diplomatic relations are sometimes affected. In other words, the policy might change because of what has been promised back home. Now that we have the Labour Party in power, we know the Conservatives have been there for a long time, and now we have Labour in power. How is that going to shape any differently our foreign diplomacy between the UK, or coming from the UK to Nigeria?
So I think the new Labour government, and the Foreign Secretary in particular, wants to reset our relationship with a number of countries. And it's a change in tone. He wants to know what people in other countries think, and for us to be more responsive. He wants our tone to be more respectful. And I think that there was a very interesting theme that ran through the Foreign Secretary's visit here, where he was very much in listening mode. He wasn't in telling mode. And he heard some messages which were quite different on some of the policies that we've had towards certain issues like energy. He was told multiple times Nigeria needs to use its gas for its energy transition. The energy poverty here is so great. Why is the West only focusing on green technology? we need a more holistic approach in a country like Nigeria. He was listening very carefully to what the Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs and indeed His Excellency the President was saying about the region, not just about the ECOWAS region in which Nigeria is the anchor country, but also about other very important foreign policy issues like Sudan. How do we deal with a humanitarian catastrophe? How do we get more humanitarian aid in, justify that access, get access to providing that assistance? But how do we bring the warring parties to the table, which is the most important thing? And, there were discussions about Sudan as something that Nigeria is very concerned about. You have a large diaspora there. You have lots of traditional historical links there. But also, there's a lot of spillovers that we're worried about coming into Chad and the situation in the Lake Chad Basin, on which we've worked for a long time in partnership with both the 4 countries of the Lake Chad Basin, but particularly with Nigeria as the anchor country in the region. So I think there's a focus in London on Nigeria being just so important for the region, for the leadership role it's playing under the presidency of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, His Excellency. But also Nigeria is a lot more assertive in global fora, attending the G20, arguing quite rightly for a seat on the UN Security Council, being active in the debate about the reform of the UN and the international financial institutions like the World Bank. So I think there is a real willingness to listen and partner and understand how the world has changed, and the voices in that world are changing.
Let's talk about immigration policies.
Sure.
Many Nigerians perceive UK's policies as overly restrictive, especially for students and skilled workers. So how do you respond to allegations that these inhibit human capital development?
I have to contest this picture because the UK in the last couple of years has granted around 300,000 new visas to Nigerians, which far exceeds any other visa relationship which Nigeria has with any other country. The trends have been really positive post-Brexit. Nigeria has been a major beneficiary of the post-Brexit migration visa rules. And if you look at, say, the number of people getting work visas in the UK, these people play an incredibly important role in certain sectors, particularly our social care sector. The number of people getting work visas that go to the UK has gone from something like 10 to 20,000 6-7 years ago to 80, 90,000 a year in the last 2 years, last year and this year. Now, we have 145 visit visas already, 145,000 visit visas already approved this year, similar to last year. Student numbers, they are down. We had around over 100,000 last academic year. The initial figures suggest they're around 70,000 this year. So student numbers, I admit, are down. But I think everybody agrees that it's a huge relationship. There's a lot of positivity in it. If you apply with the right documentation and the right evidence, the approval rate is very high. Student visas, it's 75%, I think. Sorry, 97%. Work visas, if you've got the right documentation and the job lined up, again, very high. So I would like to emphasize how huge the relationship. It outstrips any other visa relationship that Nigeria has with any other single country, in my understanding. But I'm very happy to talk further about what is on people's minds. I know that it's an issue that people want to talk about. So always, please come back at me.
Yeah, we will, but my colleague has questions for you, so let's see if he's going to go there. Ayo, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'd like to begin, from a soft angle, Dr. Montgomery. First of all, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been navigating Nigeria since 2009, working with the UK DFID at the time. You must have had a lot of jollof rice, haven't you?
Yes, thanks, Ayo. Nice to see you. Have had a lot of jollof rice. In fact, we have a campaign on jollof and tea. I hope you've noticed it, which is to emphasize the UK-Nigeria links by twinning one of Nigeria's national spicy dishes with the British national drink. But yes, this is my second posting to Nigeria, so please go ahead.
At least now I know that we have something in common, and that is tea. That's the only inheritance I got. But talking about the Nigeria-UK relations, it's exciting for many Nigerians, and of course, a little mixed reactions for some, that the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK is has very strong affiliations with Nigeria. How does that help the Nigeria-UK relations, in your opinion?
So look, I'd like to congratulate Kemi Badenoch on her election as the leader of the Conservative Party. I think she's, she's the first black British woman to run a major party, I think actually in Europe, not just in Britain. But I also would like to draw attention to that there are many other people that can trace their heritage back to other countries at the top of political society. Rishi Sunak, our previous Prime Minister, my previous Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. We have an incredibly diverse politics, and I think we should be proud of that. It's a very open society. There was a very interesting article in The Economist, I think in early October. It was an article that I actually shared with my Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, before he came out, and it was about the Nigerian diaspora in the UK and how they have reached the heights, not just of politics, but of business, of sport, of music and fashion. You mentioned Tiwa Savage, for example, but many other people at the top echelons of various sectors of the British economy and society, academia and so forth. I could go on and on. So I think that it is very helpful to have leading figures that have a connection to Nigeria. It's an area that we would like to harness more in the British High Commission, and I know that as part of the Nigerian foreign policy, that Nigeria is looking to harness diaspora and the benefits that the connections bring, both to business but also to innovation, ideas. I think there's a huge potential to draw on diasporas, our mutual diasporas, much more effectively in the future.
Talking about Nigerians in diaspora, particularly those in the UK, there are those, Chamberlain asked you a question along that line earlier. When we talk about the Nigeria-UK relations, young Nigerians are looking at it in a particular way. What are the opportunities for them?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because, I mentioned our Jollof and Tea campaign, and actually it's a light-hearted, quirky attempt to try and connect with a younger generation. We have a lot of shared history and we have a lot of mutual admiration for some of our traditional institutions in both countries, including traditional leaders and monarchies. But actually, that's not what interests young people in Nigeria. What younger people, I think, are often struggling with is opportunities. They want to have a better life and they want to know what opportunities are evolving and out there. Now, we have a number of areas that I think the UK High Commission and my team are active in. The first is the area that was actually covered in the news report just before I came on air, which is the British Council work. And the conference that we held only a couple of weeks ago in Abuja on Going Global Africa, hosted by the British Council and by the Nigerian Education Minister, which is about UK universities investing more in Nigerian universities and building their capability and building more educational opportunities and standards in Nigeria. And that's a very positive area. Another area, we mentioned creatives. There's a huge boom in the creative sector in Nigeria, whether it's film or fashion, music, art, but wider technology, social media and other technology. So that's one of our priority sectors. And as I said earlier, we've got a minister-to-minister dialogue about how we channel more investment into an area that could be good for young people. I'm also really conscious that there are parts of the economy that are lagging behind. There are parts of the economy in which some of these sort of more glitzy sectors aren't as relevant, and agriculture is one. We need to create more opportunities for people across the country in core economic sectors. And we do a lot of work in agriculture, and we want to do more. And I was very interested to hear Senator Abdullahi before I came on. You know, the federal government has ideas. We need to follow up and back some of those ideas, and we already have some work in that area.
I can't believe time is flying when we've barely scratched the surface. But let me ask you this. There was this concern some time ago about Nigerians requesting to skip IELTS tests for coming to universities in London, UK. What is your impression or thought about that?
So I think, unfortunately, there are many people who apply for higher education in the UK that are not proven to have the skills. It's really important that if people are going to be successful in higher education, they have to show that they've got the right competencies to thrive. Otherwise, it can be quite a distressing situation to go into a course. The rules about this are global. They're nothing about Nigeria in particular. So I think the focus should more be on that many people do want to go to the UK higher education for opportunities, but supply now outstrips demand. So the UK had an international education strategy set 3-4 years ago that we would aim to have 600,000 international students, foreign students studying in UK higher education. And last year we hit 750,000 students in higher education in the UK, foreign students. So we've somewhat overshot our capacity, and that makes it inevitably somewhat competitive. And I think, let's be honest, tests are a way of making sure that people have the right competencies to thrive in higher education in the UK.
Yeah, just they don't understand how is it that Antigua, Barbados, Bahamas, Jamaica, countries like that, they're excluded from taking the test, but Nigeria, they insist that we have to take that test. So they wonder, we speak English is basic here. So.
These countries, I can't comment on these specific countries, but I can make a guess. Will you allow me to guess and not hold me to it? They're much smaller than Nigeria.
Much smaller?
Much smaller, and maybe there's a stronger track record of previous students. I think there are always good reasons why guardrails are put in, and Nigeria is one of the biggest countries in terms of that visa relationship. 10% of all visas, new visas granted by the UK in the last 2 years have been to Nigerians. And many Nigerians still, have 5 or 10-year visas. There's a huge relationship, education incredibly valued, huge numbers of students still going, and it should be a positive to our relationship. But inevitably, please, no one expects free for all. There has to be some sort of management to that sort of visa process and that migration process.
Well, I wish we had more time, but I mean, we didn't even take your opinion on the tax on the tax policy reforms. I mean, saying that Nigeria is trying to model its new reforms based on what you have in the UK with His Majesty's revenue and customs, doing almost all the work around tax in the UK. And it would have been nice to get what your thoughts are, but I guess we're totally out of time.
What I can say is that our economic dialogue with the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank, very positive. We know times are tough with people, and there's a good deal of difficulty with inflation and petrol prices. But I am personally optimistic that the country is going in the right directions. The reforms will pay off, and we have a very productive dialogue that when we're asked to share how the UK does it with the revenue and customs, or the way the Bank of England does it, we do respond as quickly as possible to requests from the Nigerians to share information. And we're learning a lot from working with our Nigerian partners here. And that's the benefit of having a strategic partnership. We can work across a broad front very productively.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's several grounds to cover, but we had to anchor at this point in time. We have to thank you for coming on. His Excellency Richard Montgomery, British High Commissioner to Nigeria, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much, Chamberlain and Malping. Nice to see you again.
All right, guys, there you go. That wraps it up today. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Thank you for your feedback. Hopefully we will be able to take them tomorrow. Thank you for watching. I'm Mal Belvin, Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a beautiful week ahead.